Hello and welcome to the Mindset Mentor. I'm your host, Tania Kolar, and you are listening to Sauga 960 AM. I hope you're having a phenomenal Saturday morning, and you are going to be so excited when I tell you what the show topic is today, because I think it's something that everyone can benefit from: health and longevity. So it's so interesting because we are definitely living longer, right? The lifespan is certainly increasing, but we don't want to just live longer. We want to live better. We want to be healthy and be able to enjoy our lives. So today we're going to dive into some deep information on how to, live a healthier life, how to live longer. We're going to talk about healthy nutrition, healthy eating. We're going to talk about weight loss. Yes, and now I know I got your attention on that one. And guess what else we're going to talk about? Big craze. We're hearing a lot of information about fasting. So we're going to talk about intermittent fasting and more. And a topic that I think is becoming explosively popular right now is autophagy. We're going to get into that, what that means. Well, just really quickly, if you've never heard of it, it's basically the body eating itself. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's a good thing. Trust me, it's a good thing. So stay tuned and you're going to hear all about that. You're also going to learn some really cool healthy hacks and, how to really continue to enjoy every day, but also to ensure that you are living your optimal life. As you know, the Mindset Mentor is all about helping you cultivate a life you love. And this is your mindset workout. So I want to just dive in and say hello to my special guest joining me. She's a dear friend of mine and just a brilliant doctor. She's a naturopathic doctor and also the author of The Healthy Millionaire. So she's got a lot of great healthy hacks for you. And she really walks the talk, which I love. So the information and the advice that she is giving you, she has not only worked with and researched with her own patients, but she practices it in her own life and in her world and in her very busy life. She's a mom of 5, a super busy entrepreneur, businesswoman, everything, you name it. And another book in the works, and we're going to talk about that as well. So hello and welcome, Dr. Janine Bowring. It is so good to see you, my friend.
Oh, so great to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And what a lovely and welcoming welcome, and so great to be here. I'm so happy to be a part of this and so, enamored by the fact that you are doing this, because people really need to tap into that healthy mindset, because it always starts in the mind, and that whole connection with the body is so super important to me as well. And that's, been the mainstay of educating people about their health over the years, whether it was with my patients or, certainly when I do any type of talk or lecture, it's always about that mind-body connection. So I'm so happy that you're doing this show, Tanya, and so, happy for you as well. It's so fantastic to be able to connect again in this medium.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are just a wealth of information. And so I thought, of course, I got to reach out to my good friend, Dr. Janine, and get your advice, because I think people right now, we're kind of stuck in this space of wanting more. We want better. We want to do something that can help us, but there's so much information. And I think that we can get inundated with, too much information. We're hearing about all of these fad diets, what's great, what works. And then, another study comes out and says, well, we were wrong. That wasn't right. Or it works for a while. You follow this diet, you get excited, right? You got your mindset revved up, but then something trickles in and that sets you back. And then you now have undone all of that great work. So I really want to talk about, let's start with, weight loss, right? And dieting, because I think that's such a big thing for a lot of people. And where we fall short is the long-term benefit. So how do we do fasting safely, and what are some of the diets that we should be looking into now?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And that's a loaded question, because whenever and the word diet sort of irks me. I don't like the word diet, because as soon as you say the diet, you mean, first thing that comes to mind, okay, I'm going to do this for a period of time. I'm going to lose my weight and then I'm going to be good. Well, That's exactly not how it works. In terms of diet should be, and this is very cliche, a lifestyle change. And I don't even like that. So when you're tweaking what you're consuming on a daily basis, this isn't just for, until you get the weight off. This isn't just, for the period of time that, I'm going to commit to doing this for a few months. And then because as soon as you stop, you gain the weight back and then some. And that's why people get caught up in this roller coaster of the yo-yo dieting. So really, making these overall changes, and they really are something that you have to think of. Okay, you're gonna tweak what you're already doing, because obviously you're eating. Everybody's eating right now, but you're gonna tweak that, and you're gonna make it just a little bit better, and find what you like. I mean, I don't think, and I've always said, there's no one diet that's good for everyone. So, the keto diet is so uber popular these days. And it's crazy to me, because if you eat healthy fats, which we all should eat some healthy fats, then often your body would be in that ketotic state without you having to measure your urine and do all these fancy things. Your body naturally, when you implement some of these things, and we're going to talk about the fasting in just a second, when you implement these things, your body is going to go into a bit of ketosis naturally on its own. You don't have to measure it. You don't have to do all, and make it become this crazy thing, because the problem with keto as well is that you get into the ketosis, you lose a bunch of weight, but then how long can you sustain that? And for a lot of people, I would say most people, it's very difficult to stay on that for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years when we're talking about longevity, and we're all, hopefully living longer with some of the tips that we're sharing, that it has to be something that you can implement easily into the diet. And it's not so far-fetched that it wouldn't be something that our ancestors, and I always look back at what our ancestors did to live a healthy life and to have, that normal, beautiful body weight that they didn't have to think about. That was just the way of life. So this is, putting all this information together. Yes, looking at the research really does prove that there are a lot of benefits in, increasing the fats and the healthy fats in the diet, and doing the fasting, which we're going to get to right now, and doing these things. But that's a natural lifestyle that, 100 and 200 years ago, that kind of people did anyways. And that's, fasting. And when you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning, you didn't eat for those, however many hours that you were sleeping for. So that, inherently is like the intermittent fasting. So we just got to get back into those normal biorhythms and our circadian rhythm, get back on track. And, we're going to share some of that right now.
Well, that's exciting news. And I love the fact that, we can just tweak. We don't have to completely overhaul our entire lives and our eating habits, because it's tough, right? It's really hard. In the moment we say, well, I'm not going to eat this, and I'm going to avoid this particular type of food, or whatever it is, I'm going to avoid all carbs. Boy, the brain starts to really battle with you, right? And you have this real struggle. And the moment you say you can't have it, your brain is telling you you want it and you need it, and you're looking for it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So if I say, okay, don't think of the color red, what's the first thing you think of?
Red. Hello.
Right? So it's exactly to your point. So it's really important to do those tweaks, and they are possible. And certainly carbohydrates, when we're talking, I know we'll be talking about autophagy, but when we're talking about lifespan and increasing our health span, this, and getting into that autophagy state in which the body, it's the body's cleanup mechanism. So if we want to achieve that, we really have to watch our insulin levels. And this is where, as much as, we need some healthy carbohydrates, but they shouldn't be the refined carbohydrates. So I think across the board, if everybody wants a quick health hack, is try to the best of your ability to eliminate the refined carbs. And what that means, for people who don't understand refined carbs, that means the white sugar. That means, the grab and go muffins and the refined, grains as well, the refined wheat. It's the muffin, it's the bagel, it's the piece of cake, it's the little cookie that you think, oh, it's just a little cookie. It's not going to, do too much. I can't possibly be gaining weight from that one little cookie. Well, yes, you can, because it has a lot to do, not so much with the sugar, but it's with the insulin response in our body. And as soon as we're spiking our insulin, and we do that repeatedly throughout the day, the body cannot then secrete our glucagon, because glucagon and insulin, they work opposite of one another. So in high insulin, we have low glucagon. That's not what we want. We want to, at times of the day, we want to make sure that our glucagon levels are going up, meaning that we're pushing ourselves into the cleaning mechanism, the autophagy state, and that's what we want. So it's all about doing these little tweaks. So whenever you can, eliminate those refined sugars from the diet to keep your insulin more stable, then that's really going to go a long way to help you.
So what do you think about labels? Is it important for us to read labels? Because, I find I'm so shocked at the amount of sugars, let's say, that are in items that you'd never believe had sugar, or there's fillers and there's all these things. So should we get into a habit of really educating ourselves on what it is that we're putting into our body?
Absolutely. And, and certainly the next hack that I'll talk about is try not to eat foods that require a label.
Because even better,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, because if it's a packaged food, and sometimes we have to have packaged foods, absolutely. But if it is packaged, then it means it's been processed in some way, usually to get into the package. Mm-hmm. And so going more natural, but certainly with packaged foods, yes, you've got to read, the ingredients, absolutely, but the carbohydrates, that's the first place that I look. So my friends in university, they used to laugh at me and like, she's reading the labels again. I did it way back then, right? To look at, the macronutrients, your carbs, fats, and your proteins. And look at the carbs, because sometimes the healthiest foods you would think don't have a lot of sugar, and they do. So you have to watch the carbs a little bit, but everything in moderation, absolutely. But you've got to watch those added sugars, because often it's hidden in foods as well that you wouldn't necessarily know that it's there, and it's really going to spike your insulin. Then you can't get into the autophagy, the whole aspect of healing. And autophagy is great for weight loss, but also for healing. That's the body's cleanup mechanism. And that's what we want. When we talk about prevention of cancer and treating cancer, you want to get into that autophagy state so that, your body can clean up those bad cells.
So I love that, because that really gives us hope that, we have the control, right? The body has an amazing system of cleaning itself up, healing itself, regenerating, and we always are looking to the external for that. And now, of course, some of the external things can be helpful and some of them are not helpful. They're actually the opposite effect of what we intend. But I think that the fact that we can actually control a lot of our health ourselves is really inspiring, and it really should give us the motivation to do what we can, even if it's just those little tiny little tweaks that you can do. You don't have to cut out everything. Maybe try one thing and then build upon that, so you get a good system. And as you say, it's really a lifestyle. It really comes to a point of, I think, honing in on your mindset. I have a friend of mine who lost over 100 pounds, about 120 pounds.
Wow.
And I was like, 20 pounds, if anybody's ever tried to lose weight, 20 pounds is a lot of weight. 120 pounds, and that could be a person, right?
Yeah.
And for her, again, it was a mindset shift. She changed her mindset, and that was it. And she never went back to that, the higher weight, right? Because she was determined and committed. And I think you have to really be committed to your success, and also to honor who you are and where you're at. We're all different shapes and sizes, and it's great. That's good. But the ideal is to, get into the best shape that you can for yourself, so that you can live that longer life and live it in a way that you can enjoy. I think that's definitely, there's a difference between the two. So let's talk about, some of the things that we can do from a nutritional perspective, what we can eat in terms of trying to live that longer lifespan.
Yeah, so definitely when we're talking about, antioxidant rich foods, that's where you want to go. And the ones that don't spike your insulin. So certainly if you're looking for longevity, the studies are showing too that lower insulin response in the body is something that we're aiming towards. So yes, eat as many raw fruits in their natural form, raw fruits and vegetables that still are the whole food. So juicing I'm kind of on the fence about juicing. Yes, it's great, but because you're removing the fiber, which helps to slow down that insulin response, sometimes that can really spike your insulin with the juicing. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. Certainly if you're trying to lose weight, then juicing I don't think is the way to go, unless you're really restricting your calories, or maybe you're using along with some fasting techniques. But you want to eat the whole fruits. And the berries I love because they're rich in those bioflavonoids and the polyphenols, which are really important. In terms of autophagy, there's specific foods of the polyphenol group that really helps to shift you into autophagy. So for longevity, this is what we want. So things like, believe it or not, coffee. With the polyphenols in coffee. I know. Yay. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so that's one of the ones that I love. Certainly green tea with the EGCG is another polyphenol that helps with autophagy, but helps to manage our insulin levels as well, and helps with weight loss. So helps to target fat and belly fat. So that's a great one. Pomegranates are good as well. But again, I wouldn't go to so much, if you're trying to lose weight, I wouldn't go to the juice. I would go to the full pomegranate and eat, it in its whole food form, which is fantastic as well. So those are some of, the tips and tricks. And when we're talking about, certainly the going in the route of incorporating more of these antioxidants in the diet, that you want to try to get a little bit in every time that you eat. Every time that you eat, you should see it as an opportunity to, feel good and feed your body with the energy that it needs. It's fuel. At the end of the day, food is fuel. And yes, there's a whole social aspect around food that we enjoy, and you should be able to sit down and enjoy, with your friends or your family, enjoy the whole process, but there's the fuel aspect as well. So every time, I think so many people, they sort of eat on the run, and they're hungry. So they're feeding that void, but they're not thinking of it as an opportunity to really feed your body with the antioxidants that you need to protect against that free radical damage, which we all have free radical damage around us all the time. Even exercise causes free radical damage. So unless you're counteracting that, then you're not going towards health. You're going in another direction, which is preventable.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that's such great news, preventable. And I think if we start to develop habits earlier, the better, if they're good habits, right? We definitely want to do what we can, right, to foster well-being on every sense. So important. The foods that we eat affect how we feel. And, I love that you were saying that, you eat something and you feel that energy or not. And so I think it's really important to see what makes you feel good. For me, I know that when I give up a particular food, then I really notice when I reintroduce it, I notice the impact that it has and how it affects me more than I would have, or I didn't notice it at all before. You know what I mean? And it was negative, but I think you're so used to feeling not optimal that you can't even notice and tap into that.
Exactly. And use your intuition. I mean, when we're talking, on the physical plane, absolutely, there's certain foods that we gravitate towards, and sometimes they're the wrong ones for the wrong reasons, right? If our energy is dipping mid-afternoon because of stress and our adrenal glands, our secretion of our cortisol has plummeted, mid-afternoon, and we go for that coffee, we go for that sweet to get our energy, that boost of energy, or maybe we're low in vitamin B12. I mean, there's different reasons why our energy could sort of dip down. And we go for that quick hit, we go for that quick fix, but that's sort of working against you, because now you're spiking your insulin with the sugar, right? And you're gonna be, once you crash again,
there you go, you're going down.
Exactly. Then you're going to look for that next hit again. And that's why sugar is so addictive. The studies have shown that it's even more addictive than cocaine. So curbing that refined sugar habit and addiction is a huge undertaking for a lot of people. But once you do it, once you've got the mindset, and maybe you're hearing about it for the first time today, you've got the mindset, okay, I've got to do something about this because it's a problem. You may not have even realized that it's a problem until you hear today's program. But yeah, the sugar is a big issue. So whatever you can do, and use tools. There's so many support groups online and with, people that go towards the more low carb sort of lifestyle on social media, that you can really, feel supported by other people that are doing the same thing to be able to help yourself. And I think, strength in numbers, it's always good to have those people around you to be able to do this. And for it to be a long-term thing, like we said earlier, you don't want it to be, I'm just going to cut my sugar for, 2 weeks and see how it goes and see how much weight I can lose. No, that's the end game here, is to really do something healthy for your body for the long term.
Yeah, I think, well, I totally agree with you 100%. The long term is really so beneficial. I've done some of these diets where, it's extreme. I mean, I've done the extreme ones, like no fat, no sugar, nothing, like for 30 days, right? And did I lose weight? Yeah, I lost a ton of weight, but it was the most boring 30 days I've ever had in my life. And then of course, the next month I put it all back. So I was like, well, of course, it was a waste of time, right? Okay, so we're going to talk more about that, because I think a lot of people can relate and have those ups and downs, and certainly normal, but we're going to help you to stabilize that so you can avoid those ups and downs, and talk more about some health hacks with Dr. Janine Bowring. So excited to have her on the show. And by the way, she's also author of The Healthy Millionaire, and a second book coming out soon. So we're going to talk about that when we come back after this break. Stay with us and we'll be back. Well, hello and welcome back to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM. We're going to continue the conversation on health and longevity with Dr. Janine Bowring. So much great information on healthy hacks to help you live longer and also to live better. I think really that's the goal, right? And of course, today's lifespan is increasing. And I think if we, look far off into the future, decades into the future, it's going to continue to increase with all the technology. I mean, there's so much great research happening and advances in technology and in, cryotherapy and all kinds of stuff, right? That we're going to live longer, and who knows how long we're going to live. And we always want to live our best life every moment. And certainly we've got some great tips today with Dr. Janine Bowring. It's so great to have you on the show. So excited. And let's just, continue the conversation. We talked about weight loss and how we can, incorporate healthier habits. And one of the things that a lot of people are talking about right now, we're seeing a lot about, is fasting. So is there a benefit to fasting? And what are they, if there are?
Oh, absolutely. So yes, there's different types of fasting. So maybe we'll break it down a little bit. So certainly intermittent fasting is the type of fasting where it's not for a prolonged period of time. And the longer types of fasts are usually at least, 24 hours. So 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 days. And some experts will say, you can only really reach that great state of autophagy at 3 to 5 days of fasting on just water. And that would be a clean fast on water and maybe some herbal tea. And for most people, I think that would be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, it's tough.
And a little bit, and quite a daunting sort of task to try to even mentally try to get your head around that, let alone to implement it into your life. So how I like to ease people into the fasting is the intermittent fasting, in which you choose a window during the day, typically in your waking hours, of eating. The most common window is about 8 hours, and then you have 16 hours of fasting. And that makes sense for a lot of people. So, that cuts out for most people the late night eating. And this is where, when you're spiking your insulin, this could be a problem, because if you don't want to eat, you've heard that, eating carbs before bed helps you to have a great night's sleep, but it's not the best. And if you're trying to lose weight. So with the intermittent fasting, it's a great way to allow your body now to sometimes, and it will get into that ketotic state, meaning finding that it has to go into your fat stores now for energy because it's depleted all of the sugar in your body from the food that you've eaten throughout the day. Now it has to go into your fat stores. So for a lot of people, this is a fantastic method to sort of tweak what they're doing and hopefully going towards a more healthy eating and in terms of their dietary intake of the foods. And remember those polyphenols, so the berries and all of those healthy foods, but also now closing up that window a little bit of eating. The other thing that's interesting in terms of in your eating window, so studies have shown that, when they tested eating the same amount of calories in two groups of mice that ate the calories, the same amount of calories, but they did it in that small window, that they had one set of results versus doing it in, a way in which they were eating the same amount of calories, but spreading it out through the day. So having a lot of eating windows, so more frequent eating, meaning like for us, it would mean snacking. So where they once told us, okay, eat your breakfast, then you have to have a snack. And, the 6 to 8 meals, small meals a day, a lot of bodybuilders used to say this, and the fitness trainers.
Yeah. Every 3 to 4 hours.
Keep your metabolism going. You've got, and that's a huge misconception because the studies have actually shown that if you are allowing your body to get hungry, then that's actually better for your metabolism. So I'm not so much around, advising about the snacking anymore. Once I looked at the research and it kind of made sense to me. Like, I think about when I was a kid, we didn't snack that much. We were thin and running around all the time and had loads of energy, and our parents as well always had a great body weight, but there wasn't any snacking happening. I mean, you eat your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner, and maybe a little snack, after dinner, and that was it. So getting back again into the way that, and if you look at historically, when you went out into the farms, like hundreds of years ago, when you had to actually harvest the food that you're eating and work for it, right? That this was, you only had access to food, if you're lucky, 3 times a day. I mean, in most cultures, and even now today, you eat twice a day and you're not eating in between. And I think a lot of people with fasting, the big fear is the hunger. And I don't know if you've experienced the fasting, but the fear is the hunger. Oh my God, I'm going to be, and I experienced this at the beginning too, when I did the intermittent fasting or a prolonged fast, like, oh my God, I'm going to be so hungry. I'm going to die. Right. And that's a huge mental block. So that's a health hack right now that you got to get your mind over. You're not going to die. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're be okay. You can have water. You're not going to die.
I love that. It is a mindset thing. And I think it's, you have to, come to terms with making the decision. Oftentimes it's the decision is the hardest part. And then the fasting is not as hard as you think. I mean, I have done both a short-term and a long-term fast. And, it certainly wasn't as hard as I thought. Now, was I hungry? I was hungry. The first fast that I did, which was like an intermittent fasting thing. Yeah, I was a little more hungry, but then as I got used to it, I was like, oh, this is a piece of cake. No big deal. I can skip a meal. And I did a 3-day fast as well.
Wow.
That
good
was
for you.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I've done the 24 hours. So 24 hours for my lifestyle, as you know, Tania. I mean, I'm not saying that anybody's any more busy or not, right? Yeah. But, with the kids and everything, it's for me, the 24-hour, but I did. Now, have you heard of the dirty fasting? I did the dirty.
What's a dirty fast? What?
Dirty fasting. I mean,
wait, does that include dirty martinis?
No.
Darn.
Too bad. No. So the dirty fasting includes, you can have a little bit of coffee. So that's for me.
Yeah.
Because the thought for me mentally, again, it's a mental thing. The thought of me not being able to have my coffee was like really daunting, and it was stopping me from doing the longer fast. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have my coffee. I don't care what anybody says, I'm going to do my coffee. And then I do some research and I find out that it's actually a thing, dirty fasting. And Yeah. So, I mean, that's totally cool. As long as you're not spiking your insulin. I put a bit of cream in my coffee as well. You know, when people are doing the
Okay.
keto type of
Yep.
keto coffee, some people will
Mm-hmm.
do a keto coffee, meaning that you're putting healthy fats, whether that's ghee, so clarified butter,
Mm-hmm.
into and frothing that up in your blender with your coffee. I didn't do that. I
Yeah.
just did cream
Yeah.
in my coffee. But for me to be able to do the 24 hours with my water and my herbal tea, that
Mm-hmm.
was the way for me to do it. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that's so cool. And it's interesting because so I've never heard of the term dirty fasting, and I want to clarify. So I said I did a 3-day fast, and it sounds like I did a 3-day dirty fast because I had
Yeah.
coffee. That's all I
Yeah.
had. So I haven't done like a 3-day just water. I had coffee, black
Okay.
coffee, and that was it. So
Yes.
no sugar, just black coffee and water.
Awesome.
But
Yeah.
so the thing is, and I'd love to for you to get behind the science of this is that
Yeah.
so I did the 24 hours. I'm like, okay, well, I've come this far, let me just go for 48. I came to
Yeah.
48. I'm like, well, then you know what, I'm gonna just go for a 3-day fast. And so
Yeah.
I wasn't hungry, so the 24
Ah.
hours was the hardest. It gets
Yes. The
easier.
first. It
Yeah, so
does. It
why?
does. Okay.
Hmm.
Why? So from the mental aspect, I think once you get over that innate instinct, right? That, oh my God, I'm going to die if I don't eat. Once you
Hmm.
get over that in your brain, it's like, oh, I didn't die. I'm good. And I heard, one expert was talking about this. And when you go to bed, you're not thinking about, and you fall asleep and you wake up in the morning, you're not going to die, right? You're not
Hmm.
eating for at least, hopefully 8 hours, you're getting 8 hours of sleep. You don't think about it, right? And
Hmm.
that's your normal routine. So the same with fasting. Once mentally you get over the fact that, and you survived it, the first 24 hours, then there's that, it sort of clicks your brain into thinking, okay, this is possible. And you had your coffee, so you were good. So, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think I mentally was ready to go just water, but again, that was
yeah,
my, okay, I can handle this, right? So, but I think you
right.
have to come to terms with what works for you, but you also want to push yourself. You want to be
Yes,
able to put
yes,
yourself in that state of advancing forward, doing something that's so good and beneficial for your body, for your mind, and also physically, right?
yeah.
And so what would you suggest if somebody hasn't ever done a fast? How do we start? How do we incorporate? And how do we advance from there?
Yeah. So first, as on a health note, certainly if you're pregnant, if you're diabetic, you're on certain medications, you have to check this with your doctor, and it's not recommended for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But putting that aside, you're a healthy person, you want to try the fasting to stimulate the autophagy. So after about 18 hours, your body is going to go into autophagy, which is self-cleaning. It's like the little Pac-Man in your body. They go and clean up all the old unnecessary cells they're just sort of holding space in your body. But now it's decreasing the efficiency of your good cells to do what they need to do, to detoxify, to maintain your youth and your skin and your complexion. And that's what we want. We want to stimulate that autophagy, at least maybe once a month. You could do a more prolonged fast, or the intermittent fasting. I tend to do that, not every day, but certainly in my days of the week and intermittent fasting is certainly, easier to do when you're busy, I find, because when you're busy, you don't think of eating as much. So getting back to, doing this and stimulating that, but to ease your way into fasting, I always recommend the intermittent fasting first, because that you're choosing that window of eating. So maybe that's, from 12 noon, you can eat until maybe 6 p.m. if you want to go like into autophagy. Then from 6 p.m. until the next day, you're not going to be eating again until 12 noon. And that's a great way. You can still drink your water, your herbal tea. You can't use sweeteners. You could use some natural like monk fruit or stevia in your tea if you find, or chew some gum, and a natural gum. Hopefully that doesn't have the artificial sweeteners in it. But that's a good way to ease your way into fasting. And this is the way that I did it before I went into the 24 hours. So my body was already used to going into to the ketotic state as well, into ketosis, meaning that your body's now going to start, once it's, used up all of the sugar in your body, it's going to go into eating away at your fat cells. And this is great because you have a sense of this happening depending on how in tune you are with your own physiology. You just have a sense of, okay, something different is, I'm feeling different. And the longer that you do the intermittent fasting, the easier it is to do the longer fast. So
yeah, and I think it's so good for the mind, for mental clarity as well.
yes,
Whether you're doing
yes.
intermittent or a longer term fast, I think there's so
Yeah.
many great benefits, right? And a lot of people, I think, today are experiencing that brain fog. And also, I want to talk about, because some of that could be related to, for women, maybe like menopause or perimenopause. And, in that case, a lot of women, they're hungry, right? So how do you incorporate a fast or try to eliminate food when you do find that you're hungry or you have certain cravings? Do you have any sort of helpful health hacks in that regard?
Yes, yes. So the hunger comes from a hormone called ghrelin. And ghrelin spikes. So it will spike depending on your circadian rhythm. Your ghrelin is going to spike at least 3 times a day when you typically would eat a meal. So you've got to ride it out. So this is where however you can distract yourself mentally. So maybe that's you go for a walk, or you notice when you're feeling hungry and then somebody calls you up, or you start to FaceTime, or you do something, and you're completely distracted. You forget the fact that you were hungry.
Yeah.
And you can sort of ride out a mealtime because you got distracted or busy. So that's the great thing about the ghrelin, is that the ghrelin is going to spike, make you hungry, and then when it dips down, you're no longer hungry. And then most people, what they would do, because then this is the mental thing, is like, oh, I didn't eat, I better go eat now, even though you're not hungry. And
True.
that's the mistake. That's the mistake. So when you're not hungry and you're not, you don't need to go and eat, especially if you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to get on this autophagy, the whole physiology of the autophagy for that cleanup system. But I think too, what people don't realize is the body does this naturally. So when people think, oh, I got the flu, or you come down with something, right, and you're not going to eat for 2-3 days, that's your body pushing you into autophagy. I had a terrible flu a couple of years back when I was working and I had to stop work and I had to go home. I couldn't function. That was my body. It was getting too toxic for whatever reason, in mind, body, and spirit. I knew I was at the end of my rope, in terms of just getting burnt out and stuff. And my body just said, no, you're done. So I got this flu, whether it was viral or whatever, who knows? And I was laid up. I couldn't eat. I couldn't barely drink, for days. But that was my body naturally doing it for me, forcing me into autophagy, clean up. And then you come out of it feeling fantastic. So
well, I think the body's so good at giving us signals, right? That was like a big signal. That was like, hey, listen, you're not listening, maybe. So I'm going to make you listen. But there are, I think, some smaller little nuances, right, that we're being told to, clean up or whatever. So I think it's so important to tap into that, right, and to really start to listen to our body. And I think some of the foods that we are putting in our bodies doesn't help for that intuitive feeling, right? We're almost like putting a barrier to that because of those maybe low vibration type of foods. Actually, I'm just, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come right back, continue the conversation with Dr. Janine Bowring. Stay tuned here on Sauga 960 AM. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm your host, Tania Kolar. Today, we are continuing the conversation about health and longevity. We are certainly living longer lives. We've got increased lifespans, and we want to not only live longer, but we want to live better. And today on our show, we've got Dr. Janine Bowring, who is giving us some great health hacks to ensure that we can live our days a little better with some optimization in our health and also in our mindset too. Of course, mindset is linked to virtually everything. And so, we really want to foster well-being on every level, both mental and physical. So it's so great to have you on the show, Dr. Janine. Just before we took a break, we were talking about fasting, the various types of fasting, long-term, short-term. And also, let's talk a little bit about the nutrients in the body, right? Because it's so important. Obviously, food gives us nutrients. And when we, aren't eating food, do we have the energy that can sustain us throughout the day?
Well, yeah, one part of, having a healthy diet that is unfortunately true is because our soils have become so depleted in a lot of the essential nutrients. Even, myself, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, the berries, and making sure that I'm getting what I think I should from my diet, but I know that I'm not getting that full nutrient density. And there's certain minerals like magnesium is a big one that we are all deficient in. Even if we eat, our nuts and seeds and our raw fruits and vegetables, the soils have become so depleted in magnesium that we simply don't get it in our food supply anymore. So this is when we're talking fasting and things, and I know that people that either you've tried it or you've heard of some of the negative drawbacks you may, in terms of ketosis and the keto diet and coming off the carbs, the low carb diets, is that there's something called keto flu, where people don't feel well when they first start to cut down the carbs and switch their physiology into burning more fat. And a lot of this can be related to an electrolyte imbalance. So we really have to be careful, especially if we started off, and most of us have electrolyte imbalances unless we're taking essential nutrients like magnesium and calcium, making sure we're getting natural sunlight exposure for our vitamin D and taking vitamin D supplements, because sometimes living in Canada, we simply don't get enough of that, natural conversion from the sunlight in our skin as Canadians. So it's important to cover up these imbalances, and especially when you start fasting or intermittent fasting or cutting down, those refined carbohydrates, that you're taking and getting enough magnesium from a high quality supplement, as well as your calcium in an absorbable form, and salt too. So there's this whole thing on salt that, those electrolytes, they help to, and they work with one another at the cellular level to make sure that all that balance is happening. So getting enough salt is essential. So during the fasting, what I do is I sort of make my own sort of Gatorade type of drink, where I'll use my water. I'll use maybe a stevia based or a monk fruit based sweetener in the water to flavor my water, just to kick it up a notch. So it's not just water and coffee during my dirty fast, right? And not so boring. But then what I'll do is I'll add salt. So Himalayan salt is great because it has other trace minerals in it. So a few shakes of Himalayan salt to keep my electrolytes up. And also I'll open up my magnesium supplement into that and ensure that is, something that I'm drinking throughout. And I have to say, even when I did the Prolong the 24 Hours, I didn't get headachy. I didn't, like a lot of people can really not feel well when they do the more prolonged fast. So your electrolytes, magnesium, calcium, your vitamin D, and enough salt is really, really important when you're doing fasting.
Yeah, that's really great advice, because I think, you always want to be safe when you're doing any type of fast, right? And so these are things that we don't think about, right? We just hear, the latest sort of trend and we jump on board, and then we don't do it correctly. And then we actually have the opposite effect. Like even, let's say, for ketosis, right? So, you're supposed to, avoid, let's say, sugar, right? And then, you could be doing the best throughout the entire day, for all your meals. And then that one latte that is loaded with sugar, that syrup, right? And then you just killed it, right? Because you're not actually even in ketosis in that case, right?
Exactly. And then it's out. And for some people it can take, now depending on how keto adapted you are. And I've tested this. I did the whole urine testing thing to test for ketosis, and it's so frustrating. I mean, again, your mind slips up a little bit for whatever reason. You get triggered, and
Yeah.
you go back to one of your old habits, right? And then it throws you out of ketosis for a couple days. You got it, and then mentally you're like, okay, why am I doing this again? Because this is just not working for me, And so I think, another sort of tip from my own experience, because like you said, I don't just talk and read about this stuff and read the research, and I actually do, and I test out a lot of these things to see for my own body, having the knowledge that I do as a naturopathic doctor, yeah, it's good. The research shows that it's good, but is it really doable? And is it really sustainable? And so with the whole keto thing that I experimented with, I think too many people are getting caught up. So they go and buy the strips, and they're basing their health, their wellness, their mental wellness and happiness on what it's saying on that keto strip. And then maybe they're seeing the weight come off, but then they're not seeing it come off. I mean, it becomes this whole mental thing that I don't think people should go down that road. I think you've got to empower yourself over feeling good, and food and enjoyment, that they all go hand in hand. Just finding the right balance for yourself, and certainly watching those refined carbs, like I said, then that's the road towards the wellness and the health that you're looking for in mind, body, and spirit. So
yeah, I think oftentimes what happens is that, if we do cheat a little bit, we beat ourselves up, and then it makes us feel bad. And then the more we just get off of that, that original goal, I think it's really important. One thing that I think is always important is to visualize. That's something that I utilize in my day, visualizing the end goal. Right. And if you have a goal of losing weight, I think that's so important, because if you're, let's say, let's take 200 pounds. If you're 200 pounds and you want to be 150 pounds, then you want to visualize 150 pounds, not the 200 pounds, because then, your mind is always on the 200 pounds, and that's what you're going to start to create. Right. So what do you think about visualization? Is that something that you incorporate?
Oh, absolutely. So we just, about a week or so ago, we just did a whole show on weight loss on social media, so on Facebook and YouTube. And that was one of the tips, was to visualize. So what you do, what we suggested was to either get a picture of yourself when you were at a good goal weight. And I say it's not necessarily your high school picture, because that may not be realistic.
Yeah, exactly. They want the weight and the age.
Yeah, right. So that's not necessarily the right picture. Or, you write down what your goal weight is on a piece of paper. Then take that piece of paper, and a couple times a day you take it, and you can put it in a fancy box, so you have something to go to mentally, and you take and you look at that goal weight and that picture, and you visualize. But the key about visualization is that you have to be in a good mood. You've got to be in that upper vibration, energetically, spiritually, with in terms of manifesting good things for yourself. You've got to be in that good mood. You can't be looking at it and begrudgingly say, oh my God, I'm never going to get here. I'm going to do this, what she told me. I heard about this thing about visualizing. I'm going to do it because I've been told to do it. No, that doesn't work. You've got to be, yes, I'm going to feel so great. I'm going to, when I get here, I'm going to, and I'm going to stay here, and maybe it'll even get better than this weight, and that's the visualization that you do. And then you keep coming back to that. And it's like the weight melts off. I'm telling you, it's because you're vibrating at a different frequency now that you're not necessarily going to be drawn to, because you feel so good. You don't need that little spike of sugar. You don't need that, you don't need to overeat that extra muffin or whatever, because you feel so good. You're not using food as a tool to make you feel better anymore. And that's once you connect to that, and that's what we talked about in my show. Once you connect to that, then it's golden, because the weight just melts off.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're coming from a place of lack, limitation, and doubt, and that is really going to, create some barriers for you. So excellent advice. I absolutely love that. And it's always so important to, really strengthen and condition your mindset. I always say that mindset is like a muscle, and just like any other muscle, you do need to strengthen and condition it to optimize it. And there are so many things that you can do in your day to ensure that you can have the best day possible. Now, life is always going to throw you some curveballs, right? You're going to be hit with challenges, and you just want to be as prepared as possible to deal with those challenges in a positive light, versus being taken out of your day because of those, because they will happen, right? So I think there's so many great things that we can do for ourselves and our body. I also want to talk about the immune system with, the healthier eating, supplements, fasting, different things, and some of the benefits, because I know that there's been a lot of research done on the benefits and for some diseases as well.
Oh, absolutely. So when we talk about insulin, that's one thing, but also the microbiome. So the health of our gut, this is over 80% of our immunity comes from our healthy gut. The microbiome, meaning that ecology in our gut, we definitely want to have more of the good guys. So the probiotics, the good friendly flora, and these help to break down our food, turn our food to energy, helps with our vitamin production, our B12 vitamin production internally. We need to have enough of those good organisms. What happens when you're eating a lot of refined carbohydrates and the wrong foods, a lot of alcohol, what it does is it feeds the bad guys. So we have bad organisms and parasites. Candida is, a fungal overgrowth that can be a big problem, makes you crave more carbs. So finding that balance in the microbiome is really important. So the great thing about whether it's the fasting or you're decreasing that insulin response by decreasing the carbs and the refined carbs, especially in the diet, what happens is naturally, you start starving some of those bad guys and those bad critters and the candida, you starve them off, they die off. And then, you're going more towards health, and then you go into the autophagy, and then your body's going to clean all that mess up, which is great. And that's why all these, tips and tricks, they all go hand in hand in terms of being able to help yourself to get healthier. And when we're talking about disease, whether you're treating a disease or going into, you want to prevent developing certain diseases, and the big ones out there, certainly like the cancer, autoimmune diseases and things, you've got to start with healing the gut. And that's why the microbiome and healing a leaky gut is really important as well. So yeah.
Leaky gut, all the issues with the gut, of course, inflammation in the body, right? That inflammation leads to disease. And so,
Right.
It's as simple as the nutrition and eating. And I love that because we have control. We absolutely have control over that. And sometimes, it's a little bit difficult to override some of our patterns, right? Because we're so used to doing something. So can you give us your tips for something that we can do on a daily basis? Like, what do you do for optimizing your health?
Okay, so here we go. So definitely, having a healthy circadian rhythm, that's important. So trying to wake up at the same time every day without an alarm clock, and waking up when the sun comes up, and trying to go to bed at the same time every day as well. That goes a long way at setting up your circadian rhythm. I do the intermittent fasting, so most days I don't usually eat until I around 11 a.m., 12 noon, even if I can stretch it to 1 p.m. I'm not eating in the morning, and then I try not to eat, because the caveat of this is that, you can get hungry. So I have to sort of stop myself and especially try not to have carbs. I don't want to spike my insulin just before I go to bed. So I try to not, have something that's going to spike my insulin, any carbohydrates before bed, and try not to do that night eating. Once in a while, I'll do the prolonged fasting, which is great, the dirty fast. So I still have my coffee. I still enjoy my coffee. So even in the morning hours, when I say that I'm not eating, I'll still have, either herbal tea or coffee, just without sugar. So if I do sweeten it, I'll use a bit of stevia or monk fruit sweetener. I've started, because I've realized for myself, I like my treats. And I think for me, sort of a big realization in my own life is that I like my treats, and I should be able to have my treats. So so what I've done is I've been able to sort of MacGyver these recipes that, if it's a regular recipe or even a healthy recipe, there's so many out there. What I've done, and I certainly have help here at the Dr. Janine show. What we've done is we've switched up recipes to make them more low carb friendly. So we've made substitutions, and we've done, like, we made cinnamon buns that are low carb, keto friendly cinnamon buns. Like, I'm telling you, they're like, oh my God, to die for.
Over the next time you make them.
No kidding. Yeah, and brownies and things. So if for people that are following on Instagram, and we post these recipes on social media, and I was telling you earlier that I'm on TikTok now, and no, I'm not dancing, but I share some of the recipes there.
Yeah, she's not dancing yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, tell everyone how they can find you?
So if you follow at Dr. Janine, so that's where you'll find me, on TikTok, but you're going to find the recipes at Dr. Janine on Instagram and Facebook as well. And certainly we have our live show on Facebook and YouTube. So we have a great YouTube channel going with a bunch of, health recipes and health topics and, really breaking it down for people in an easy to understand way. But we do have the Dr. Janine show every Monday night that's live at 7 p.m. Where we share health tips and hacks. And yeah, it's really fun. And it's a great, our next show is going to be all about the secrets of the sun and why it's important to get natural sunlight.
I love it. And unfortunately, we are out of time. So I want to say thank you so much for being here and helping the listeners to learn ways that they can really optimize their health. And I love that you have so many vehicles for people to jump on board, free information, but also information that can really be life-changing, right? And really help with our physical body and certainly our emotional well-being as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So that's a wrap for today's show. And again, we hope that you have the tools that you need to really work out your mindset. And in this case, to live a healthier and longer life with that good health. So stay with us. We'll be back after this break.